Hey, Robert Phoenix here. Good morning and welcome to another edition of 15 Minutes of Flame. I'm bummed out. I get very excited when I get to hear that applause. Hopefully you got to hear the applause on your end. So, what's happening out there? We are broadcasting to you live from looks like mostly sunny, South Central, Austin, Texas, where we are now 2 days removed from the Great American Eclipse. And I have a few thoughts about the eclipse, and then we're going to move on to the latest drama in front of us, which is what's happening in Afghanistan and what it means. And I'm sure some of you have done your due diligence and are breaking that down a bit. But I just want to echo some of yesterday's show that the one thing that the eclipse did is it really brought us all together. And I mentioned this briefly yesterday. And we haven't had a situation in our lifetime in a lot of ways where we've all been brought together for a brief period of time, no matter sort of what stripe we were or what political predisposition we have in our lives, or religious affiliation or non-affiliation for that matter. So it was an interesting moment, and it was a unifying, albeit brief, reminder that we can connect as one people, under the influence of a specific phenomenon. And just think what would happen if we had an alien invasion. Boy, we'd all get on the same side pretty quick, wouldn't we? I'm making the best coffee these days. I'm perfecting my morning energy coffee blend. Maca has become a big player in my morning coffee. Maca honey. I got this honey where there's this honeycomb inside of it. I don't know if it's any good for you, but it's looks really cool. And every now and then you get a little bit of the honeycomb in there and you get to chew on it. It's like a little like gum. And of course, butter, not ghee, butter, and coconut oil. I haven't got to the ghee yet. Not that I have a problem with ghee. It's okay. Ghee is great for survival food, by the way. If you're looking for your add to your survival pantry, ghee is your friend. Clarified butter, you can keep it out, right? So we had this fantastic, I think, moment in time with the eclipse, and it cut right through. It was so symbolic. It's like one of the most symbolic events of our lifetime. I mean, really, we live in such fascinating times. I mean, no matter where you are in the spectrum, you have to admit these are really fascinating times. And sometimes they're utterly chaotic and maddening, and but at the same time, it's like, this is kind of amazing. I mean, would it be more amazing if it was like positive amazing? Sure, yeah, absolutely. But we're in the midst of very deep change. And it can go in many different directions, trust me. I'm sure where they really want it to go, of course, is this overarching system We're all swept up and brought into the dragnet of a one world currency and a one world government and all those wonderful one world non-pluralistic affiliations. Well, they're certainly trying. They're certainly trying. They're doing their best, and they're whacking away at the opposition every single day. Speaking of the opposition, it's interesting to watch Alex Jones expand. He's expanding. I don't know if you've been watching InfoWars at all, if you do watch InfoWars, but he's completely expanding his production. And he's going to turn this thing into a full-blown news network. So what he's figured out is he's figured out that YouTube is not his friend, that Google is not his friend, and they've adapted really quickly, and they're bringing on a lot of different programming, not just streaming and talking and sort of doing the 3-hour report. They're going to be doing 14 hours a day, 16 hours a day, something like that. And they have, this is not a promotion for InfoWars. I'm just telling you this is what's going on because he's adapted extremely quickly. And then now you've got Steve Bannon, who is looking to create his own news network now as competition to Fox. And of course he has the very wealthy Mercer family backing him as his benefactor. That must be nice. A billionaire back you up. So this is what happens in our time. We have certain events take place, and all of a sudden there's a very strong reactionary push, and then we have another series of events, and we have the evolution of media and culture, and it's like the Wild West in a lot of ways, with the exception of the fact that Google and YouTube and Facebook have decided that they're going to become the sheriffs of the Wild West and basically throttle content and perform all kinds of interesting acts of editing and censure. And you know the score about that. You know what's happening there. Anyway, the eclipse, it cut through the United States. It split it almost in half, really. So from a symbolic perspective, just think about that. We have this event that is cutting right through the country. That is, I wouldn't say it's split in half. It's probably about, I don't know, maybe the 65-35, 60-40. I don't think it's 50-50, but it's clearly, a time where we're bifurcated in terms of the culture. And, there's no, I don't think there's, people have made the observation that there's really no talking points in some ways with what's happening with this whole theoretical debate between the left and the right, because the left is so incensed. You can't even talk to the left anymore. They'll shout you down. And this is just portions of the left, not everybody on the left. I don't want to put everybody into a big box, but you know what I'm talking about. We're talking about the agitprop Antifa left. And this has been going on for a while. And before Antifa had a name, it's been going on. And now they just moved the franchise from Europe to the United States. And you try to have a conversation with these people, and immediately you get shouted down as being a Nazi, as being a fascist, as being a racist. So there's no room for dialogue anymore. None whatsoever. Hateful. And this is what happened with Charlottesville. Charlottesville became this really inflammatory touch point for the division of culture. And there's a lot wrong about Charlottesville. Again, a lot of people who listen to the show are incredibly smart. We can dissect Charlottesville. Maybe we'll do that tomorrow. Maybe I'll spend about 45 minutes, and we'll just slice that thing apart. We'll take a laser beam to it. I think that's probably the best thing to do. I don't want to get too derailed today by getting into the weeds around that. But there's a lot wrong with it. But what's happened as a result is this really inflammatory condition that is going on now, and you cannot talk with these people. I mean, the rules of engagement have been set in a lot of ways. But that eclipse cut right through the country, and it really illustrated the bifurcation of where we are culturally. And at the same time, part of the area that it flew over was, or the path of the eclipse was the flyover states. I mean, it really just went right through the areas of the country that, theoretically, with the exception of Oregon, of course, elected Trump. So, from a symbolic perspective, that eclipse was really powerful. And again, it brought us together. Even if it was for about an hour, or an hour and a half, or 2 hours, it was a really kind of potent moment for us. And what a wonderful thing that could really be, if we could really experience that. If we didn't have all these outside influences pitting us against one another, and we could really be together. Wouldn't that be great? I mean, look, we're in this place now where everything has become so tribalistic and group-oriented. And we've seen this because, of course, Uranus has been in Aries, and it's at the final degrees of Aries. And every time you get to the final degrees of any sign, remember what I've been preaching for years now, the energy gets wild and out of control. So this is where we are, and but it would be wonderful if we could be together and really just like lay down our swords. I mean that would be fantastic. And all of a sudden, we all just turn our gaze to Washington and just say, you know what, that's got to change. That has got to change, and then we all just converge en masse right onto Washington D.C. and we just say, look, you guys got to get out of here. You know, you either got to get out or you've got to sit down and really accede to, you know, what we, the people, are really looking for, which is representation and transparency in our government, accountability, and cleaning up the cesspool. Because once you get into this, right, and once you look into the whole notion of government, you realize that it's not really government, it's just organized gangs. That's what it is. It's just organized gangs, like the Clinton gang, the Putin gang, the EU gang, the Rothschild gang. They're just gangs. They're gangs that have infiltrated government and used government and public funds in order to get rich, further their aims, accrue more power, influence more people, and ultimately create a system where a few gangs merge together and they're on top and everybody else is on the bottom, and we have some version of governance and some form of bullshit fake unification. That's what it's about anyway. But that eclipse brought us together for a brief period of time. And it would be wonderful. It's my wish, from my heart to yours, from my third eye to yours, from my crown to the great central sun, to the center of the great central sun. My wish and my intention is that we are unified as one people in a way that is positive, loving, proactive, receptive to one another's ideas, wants, needs, hurts, vulnerabilities, failures, and aspirations. And together we could create something wonderful in this world. There it is, plain and simple. How's that for the distillation and the purity of intent? All right, let's get into sort of the aftermath of the eclipse. Now, remember, I was sharing with people that the kind of the event path itself is about a week and a half, 2 weeks ahead and after. And one of the things that I had been talking about prior to the eclipse are a coup and a revolution. And guess what? We had both. We had both. The coup has taken place. If you have not been paying attention, the bloodless coup of Donald Trump has taken place. It is complete. He is the lion in winter without any fangs, without any teeth. He's still the president of the United States. He's the guy that was elected by the people who said, we want change, we want something different. He brought a ton of campaign promises to the table, one of which was to get us out of these eternal conflicts which we've been embroiled in since 2002. The whole Iraq thing was pre-2002. Now, if you go back in time, again, I did a show on the Friday just before Mercury went retrograde. It was stationed, and I went through the history of Bill Clinton, his relationship with Monica Lewinsky, his relationship with Kenneth Starr, his relationship with the grand jury, which was originally set up to look into improper real estate deals through Whitewater and through the Rose Law Firm down in Arkansas. And of course, they had a treasure trove of shit on Bill Clinton. Not hard to find. Not hard to find. There was a video back then, a famous video called The Clinton Chronicles. And if the people who basically dredged up all the material inside the Clinton Chronicles could do that on their own, just think what a grand jury could do. Just think what Kenneth Starr could do. It's that times 10, maybe 100. So they had it all. They knew everything. And what did it devolve into? It devolved into him getting a blowjob, denying it, lying about it. They caught him lying. You know, it's kind of like the Al Capone thing with the IRS. They couldn't get him on any major like trafficking and murder and all the stuff all the sexy stuff that you would get a gangster on. They got him on tax evasion. It was kind of the same deal. So anyway, what happens during that time? And again, we went over this, is that he became compromised. And then there's this relative ratio of compromisation, being compromised, and his deeper involvement in bombing Iraq and bombing places like Kosovo. So there's this kind of bell curve, that intersects. So compromise, equates to, hey, I'm going to go bomb the shit out of these countries. I'm going to put troops on the ground, boots on the ground, which was, by the way, completely illegal. Completely illegal. Congress had not granted war powers to Bill Clinton to send troops to Kosovo. Now, because we were involved with NATO, NATO was running cover for that operation, but nonetheless, it didn't give us the right to send troops on the ground. Of course, they were there because they were held hostage. They were captured there. So we look at the same situation, Donald Trump, grand jury, and the grand jury is digging and digging and digging, and they went in there for Russia, and of course you don't hear anything about Russia anymore, but they went in there for Russia, and then I'm sure they started to hit some very interesting material around Trump and his financial dealings, which is ultimately where they were going to go. And guess what? The longer this went on, and I'm sure there's back channels happening to Trump, basically saying, look, we've got this, we've got this, we've got this. And then the next thing you know, Steve Bannon's inner circle gets knocked off inside the White House. What was his name? Elliot Watnick Cohen, and so all the kind of the Bannonites are getting knocked off, and Trump is getting more and more isolated, and then Bannon goes, and boom, the coup is over. It's happened. It's done. It's a bloodless coup. Trump agrees to send an unspecified amount of troops to Afghanistan. This happens on the day of the eclipse. He announces it, right? So the figure is somewhere between 4,000 and 5,000. I guarantee you it'll be probably closer to 10,000. Now, there are people that are saying, this is really interesting, again, because I do watch Alex Jones from time to time, because I want to find out, what's going on, and, my competition is talking about, although there's no competition. The guy's number one when it comes to material and sourcing material, things like this. But he had Steve Pieczenik on. He's an interesting character, Steve Pieczenik. I wish I could do a Steve Pieczenik voice. Alex, Alex, you're so correct. Once again, Alex, you're correct. I can't do Pachinik. I'll work on my Pachinik today. Maybe I can ramp it up for tomorrow. Anyway, Pachinik was on. And so there's this theme, or this idea, that Trump is ramping up and bringing lots of troops in so he can covertly funnel them out and make a deal with India, make a deal with Pakistan, and get out of Afghanistan. Turn it over and have private armies go in there and basically run everything. Okay, that's the plan. Like so whatever iteration Blackwater is now, I think they're on their third name. It started off with Blackwater, then G, and I don't know what they are now. But that's the theoretical plan, is to do, I mean, according to people that have shared information with me and what I've heard in Alex Jones, and Pachinik comes on and completely blows Jones out of the water and says, you're completely wrong. And Pachinik just lays it out, man. He was like a neutron bomb. And Alex Jones didn't know what hit him yesterday. It was fascinating to watch. Anyway, he had no kind words for Trump. He had no kind words for the three generals. And he was ripping Mad Dog Mattis a new asshole, basically saying he was a loser. And the only thing he's done is he's read a bunch of books on Greek philosophy and the history of war, and so therefore he's smarter than everybody else in the room. It was an interesting interview. But so Trump now he's acceded. This is why I'm bringing this up. He has acceded to the wishes of the three generals that are essentially now kind of in his brain. And both Gerald Celente and Steve Pachinik have made a big deal out of the fact that Trump went to military school. And that Trump has this kind of fetish for commanders and generals, that they in the military in general, like it's become sort of his fetish. I guess that's the word I would use. And they kind of laugh at it. They laugh at it because he was somebody who figured out a way not to go to Vietnam, and he figured out a way to stay home and make a bunch of money, but at the same time has this kind of fealty to the military and this idea of order and authoritarian rule and everything that goes along with that hierarchy. So anyway, it was fascinating to listen to because Pachinik said it's the wrong strategy. So what are they really trying to do there? We know what they're trying to do. And this is the great thing about the time that we're living in, because the information is right there at our fingertips. The backstory is, maybe they're pulling out. Maybe this is the pull-out move. But once you're in Afghanistan, do you really want to pull out? I mean, think about that. Think about all the opium that's there. That's a huge amount of money. That's a big cash crop. And apparently it's the Marines that guard it. Huge cash crop, both legally and illegally. There's no coincidence that the opioid crisis in this country is connected to and related to, on a timeline, with the invasion of Afghanistan, basically. It's right there. I mean, you can see it happening in real time if you scale it out. Now remember, the Taliban was in charge of those opium fields, and they were not into it. They thought it was a bad deal. They didn't want to have the production of opium on their hands as it relates to Allah and their quest to enter into heaven, and also probably because it would have a negative influence on their own culture and their own society. I don't know what the addiction rate is for opium in Afghanistan, but it's right there. I'm sure it's pretty easy to get to. I should patent my coffee. The Maca Mocha. So why do you want to leave that place? Not only that, but there's gas there. There's all those rare minerals. Those precious minerals, those rare minerals, those rare metals. So we can make more cell phones. So we can find the secret ingredient that shrinks the size of a chip to a quarter. a third of an inch, an eighth of an inch, whatever would make an incredibly small chip and insert it inside of us, because we find that one dynamic little metal that allows everything to be conducted on the head of a pin, something along those lines. Not only that, but look at the proximity to Russia. You know, and there's this great Dr. John song, and it's you're probably aware of it. It's "What a Night, Oh What a Night," and one of the refrains from that song is, "Well, if I didn't do it, somebody else will. If I didn't do it, somebody else will." Well, this is the idea behind Afghanistan. If you don't do it, somebody else will. If we don't do it, China will. If we don't do it, Russia will. And this is the raw, naked truth of the game in the world we're living in. It is a plunder for resources at almost any cost, operating under the mask and the illusion of democracy and security so that we can somehow retain our freedom. Which is a bunch of bullshit. I think the world would be better off if we just called it as it is. And if Trump came out and just said, hey, look, I'm not going to lie to you. This is a really strategic place. You know, it's near Russia, and if there is any aggression from Russia, we want to make sure that we can offset it, neutralize it by putting bases in there. And that's not like telling the game plan. Russia knows this shit, right? And then you can say to the American people, plus I got to be really straight up with you, there's a lot of opium there. And, somebody's got to control the opium trade. And if we don't, somebody else will. And they'll profit off of it, and they may have their own black budget programs that they could use against us. And by the way, there's a ton of gas and there's a ton of rare minerals. And if we don't sit on them and if we don't get them, the Chinese will, our competitors will, and that's just the way it is. Pull up your pants, boys and girls. It's the 21st century. There's a new sheriff in town, and this is the kind of transparency you've been asking for. You're getting it. What would happen if he said that? Instead of this bullshit about how Americans of every stripe, every race, every color, every creed serve in our armed forces equally, like using the pretext of bringing more troops to Afghanistan to unify the American people and somehow seal off the open wound of Charlottesville. It's a bunch of shit. Sorry. Would it be great if we lived in that kind of a world? Could you imagine what that would have been like when Obama was president? That kind of real transparency? Jeez. They would have lynched him. But of course we can't use the word lynch anymore. Although, how do you deal with that with Marshawn Lynch? Beast mode. You tell Marshawn Lynch, hey Marshawn, did you know what your name means? Your last name? Marshawn, I don't think you can use it. Maybe you should think. You tell that to Marshawn Lynch. Good luck on that. What's funny is that across the bay, the general manager of the 49ers is John Lynch. So we have a white Lynch and a black Lynch in the Bay Area. It's just ironic. A little ironic. A little irony. But yeah, that kind of transparency would be welcome. Unfortunately, we get the rah-rah pep talk. So apparently, one of the reasons why Steve Bannon is out is because Ivanka and Jared were uncomfortable with his policies, and that they had to defend him and his presence in the White House to their friends in New York City. So if you're not aware of this, Ivanka Trump is friends with Huma Abedin. They're friends. Ivanka Trump is friends with Chelsea Clinton. So anything that the president could do Remember the Anthony Weiner file? Remember that? You know, his backup file, which had all the dates and names and probably pictures. Whatever happened to that? Whatever happened to using that as a skeleton key to get into everything from the Clinton Foundation and Pizzagate and all that good stuff? Ain't happening, is it? No, it's not. And it won't. For a number of reasons, but one of the reasons being that these people, they're Chelsea Clinton's friends. I'm sorry, they're Ivanka Trump's friends. They're her friends. Do you think the president is going to crush his daughter by jailing the mother of one of her best friends? Do you think he's going to crush his daughter by being able to use Huma Abedin like a voodoo doll and stick pins in her till she screams and cries and hands over all kinds of interesting nuggets of evidence? No, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. He's totally compromised. This is a terrible situation, for a president and the so-called leader of the so-called free world to be in. It's just another chapter in the fuck story. So we had the coup. It's done. It's done. He will do whatever is asked of him. Of course, John McCain's now singing his praises. CNN says, "Oh, this is great. They love their war. They love their war president. They love the war. Oh, war's so good. More soldiers. Oh, good. More deaths. Oh, good. Yeah. More guys coming back and women coming back all fucked up, drooling, sitting in dark rooms in the middle of the day, supplicating themselves with the same opioids that they were there protecting. They love that. A joke. So we had the coup. Guess what? We had the revolution too. The whole Charlottesville thing was the revolution. It came from the left, not from the right. The whole staged event, the agitprop theater, and that's on. That hasn't gone away. They may have silenced the president, but I can guarantee you they are going after his base. And his base is not going to back off now because there's been an awakening process. And like I said, Bannon's going to probably start his own network, and Alex Jones is beefing up his network and moving. He's not shrinking away. He's getting bigger. And whether you agree with him or not, I don't agree with Alex on about 25% of the stuff that he talks about. But they're doing what they're doing. So there still is a culture war, and it's taking place. But the revolution has started. And of course, the godfather of that revolution is George Soros, and all the funding that has gone down with these various groups, some of which now are crying to get paid because they've been involved in some of these mobs and protests, and now they want to get paid. Do you think that they're going to ask for more money? Like these guys are wising up, right? Maybe they can unionize. I think maybe they should unionize. The paid protesters union of the paid protesters united of the world, and they could have their own union, and they could have this kind of living wage, and maybe they can get benefits, medical benefits in case they're injured during the paid protests. And I think there's a niche there to be filled. That's what I'm thinking. So we've had both. We had the coup and we had the revolution. It's on. And it all happened just, weeks before, week and a half, 2 weeks before the eclipse. And now we're on the other side. But there's great energy there, I believe. This was a really special eclipse. And so many pictures have emerged where we can see that there is a spectrum of light surrounding the sun, which had been swallowed by the moon. The obsidian lens that light was attempting to manifest through, shine down upon us some interesting spectra of light and color. And there were people who had figured out how to do like multiple like versions of the eclipse with little pieces of paper, and it was really creative. I think the most creative eclipse of all time. Now we're going to get another one 7 years from now, and it's going to cut right through here in Austin, Texas. It will be a north-south eclipse. So instead of going across the country, it will come north-south. So in a 7-year stretch, there will be a cross. There'll be a cross through America with the eclipse. So we'll get another eclipse frenzy. So what is that in 2024? Guess what's going to happen in 2024? That's when Pluto goes into Aquarius in 2024. Interesting, right? This is the dawning of the age of Aquarius. The age of Aquarius. Yeah, I'm not a very good singer. Anyway, this is I think now, as we've moved through, as I have moved through the morass of the last 72 hours and have awoken into a state of brighter clarity, that these are actually really good times. They're great times. Do you know why they're great times? Because guess what? You get to perfect your vehicle. You get to perfect your vehicle. You get to sharpen your sword. You get to figure out how you can live inside of your body at an optimal level. You get to figure out how you can turn your brain on and have a multi-dimensional computer at your disposal. You get to figure out how you can relate from your heart and find people that are essential to your evolution and vice versa, and how to bring them into your life and come together to create something interesting, unique, profound, and life-changing. It's all there. It is all there. All the tools, all of the genetic switches, they're all in you, inside of you, and all the materials. We live in a great time for this, right? Look at all the materials that are at our disposal. All the wonderful herbs and all the wonderful supplements and all the wonderful technologies, the spiritual technologies. The biofeedback and the radionic stuff. I mean, let's be clear. This is an amazing time for the perfection of the vehicle, so that we can stay closer to the God source and get closer and closer and closer, and we become more refined and more potent. And if we link up with other people, guess what? It's amplified. So this is the time we're living in now, and I urge you to continue your journey towards being able to perfect your vehicle and to share it with another person and other people, and hopefully we can come together stronger and create our own version of the Aquarian age, not some version that's going to be laid out for us. This is what it's all about. All right. I think that's about it for today's show. So you know the drill. Use your head to discern what's real, your heart to stay open what's possible. I'm Robert Phoenix. I'll see you back here tomorrow, 24 hours from now. Here's a little outro music. Have a great day.